Welcome to the Hacksaw podcast, everybody. My name is Jordan, and I'm joined as always by my co-host here.
Hey, I'm Everett.
Yeah, Everett. There you go.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm alive. Okay, I've survived the hypersleep.
Right, yeah.
Can't say the same about James Franco.
Right?
He died real quick. He was toasted like a fucking bagel bite. Pretty much immediately. That was hilarious.
How much do you think you got paid for being in the movie for under a few minutes?
You know, I always
With
wonder
no
this.
lines and
I always wonder this, and I
no
think
real
James
screen
Franco
time.
is starting to make like a career out of this. Like, I think he could totally actually make a real living out of just appearing in movies for one scene, and he could just do like 100 of those every year. That would be awesome. Just James. You get James Franco for about 10 seconds for every single movie you see. He's in there somewhere. It could be like a Where's Waldo thing where you have to just find James Franco in every film.
Yeah.
It'd be fun.
It's kind of interesting because I thought about that, and it also made me think back to in Prometheus, how about they have Guy Pearce, who's an actor who's in his early to mid 40s, playing a 90-year-old looking man with really heavy, pretty obvious looking old man makeup.
Absolutely horrific, like terrible makeup. He looks worse. He looks like Emperor Palpatine, but worse.
Yeah, but with Palpatine, you can forgive it because it's a sci-fi fantasy and it's supposed to look kind of over the top.
He's supposed to look kind of like an alien a little bit. He's supposed to look otherworldly.
He transforms into Monster Man.
Yeah.
As he becomes evil and old at the same time. But what I was thinking about was with James Franco dying so early on in Alien Covenant and the weird sort of disconnect having a 40-year-old actor playing a 90-year-old man, it gave me this, and amongst some other things too, it gave me the sense that there's a lot of deleted scenes in these movies.
Oh, yeah, this totally feels like a cobbled together in the editing room situation where there was probably like hours and hours and hours and hours of footage, and the script was one of those things where it felt like it was kind of written as they went along. Like they had the initial pitch, like they had the pitch done. Whatever they had to say to the studios to get this movie going, they had that part done, and then they got to it like, well, fuck it, we'll just figure it out when we get there. You know, this is gold. It'll just write itself.
It's been a thing it's a thing that's been happening in a number of Ridley Scott movies, funnily enough. I remember that with the movie Gladiator, I watched it a long time ago with the commentary track, and Ridley Scott and some of the other people in the movie were talking about how when they made this movie, they only had about 3/4 of the script actually finished when they started shooting. So when it gets to the third act, they were like,
Fields of wheat.
how about they all kill each other?
Yeah, they just all, and that's always, you have that as your plan B if plan A doesn't work out. I mean, you can just have we'll just dramatically have everybody die.
What if the hero kills the villain and the villain kills the hero, but it's okay because now he's finally free?
It's actually not okay because I was really sad when I was like 10 years old and Russell Crowe died.
Yeah, it was sad.
Because he died like a bitch. That's the problem. Is that he died from like a poison.
Yeah.
Thing, you know what I mean? It's
and
like,
getting stabbed.
well, he got a little bit stabbed. He was more poisoned than stabbed. And I just always thought, man, they did him dirty, like real hard. You know, it's like Joaquin Phoenix.
They also stabbed him before he entered the arena, I think.
Yeah, I just think that was fucked up. You know, like the movie itself,
You're like, oh, by the way, Russell Crowe. Like, oh, damn it. I was mainly making a point that a lot of Ridley Scott movies, especially over the last 20 years, feel like they had a lot of deleted scenes.
Yeah,
And didn't have a full script when they started making the movie. And a lot of these movies, like Gladiator and another movie he made a few years after that called Kingdom of Heaven, both had director's cuts, which both improved the movies quite a bit, at least on a narrative level.
Yeah,
a lot of stuff.
Cut of Gladiator was better.
A lot of the story stuff and character stuff that got cut out of the theatrical release, because these movies were already pretty long, a lot of that stuff that got cut out was actually really good. So it's like, yeah, if you have the time and the patience to watch the full director's cut and actually see the movie more like it was meant to be shown, or the story to be how the story was supposed to be told, then definitely do it. But the thing about Prometheus and Alien Covenant is, if there is a director's cut of these movies floating around anywhere, I don't care.
No, it's
there wasn't enough there in the theatrical release to make me want to see more of that.
It's more so like it has like an opposite effect to where it's like a director's cut of Covenant and Prometheus would include include more information to help flesh out the narrative. In this case, it seems the theatrical releases were all the B scenes that would have been cut out, and they cut out the actual scenes that explain to you why anything is happening ever. And that's what we're focusing on today. We got 2 movies here. This might be a 2-parter, depending on how long we go on this. You know, we might do Prometheus for this first episode and then do a part 2 on Covenant, just so it's not like a 3-hour podcast. But we're going to kick it off with Ridley Scott's Prometheus. Came out in 2012. It's been a movie that we've been really mulling over in our heads for a long time, ever since we saw it. And it's never really left my psyche or left my brain because of how profoundly bad it is. It's one of those things, it's like Star Wars prequels, where you just kind of always, even though it's like, there are some movies that are so bad, like Tenet, where you just immediately forget about it after you leave the theater. But there's other types of bad movies like Prometheus where they're horrible, but you can't seem to shake them out of your brain one way or the other.
Right. I have a similar impression. I think the reason why we're doing an episode about this is because it left a similar impression on us, like certain movies like Dunkirk and 1917. These big movies that came out over the last several years that were supposed to be really good and supposed to be really epic. And a lot of people thought they were really good and really epic. But we walked out of these movies just very frustrated and wondering what we were missing and wondering what people were seeing that was so great about this. And with Prometheus, it's one of
the bigger culprits of that.
Absolutely. I still remember the theater experience from 8 years ago, going to see Prometheus with a group of friends of mine, and we were both pretty amped to go check it out. Yeah, I remember just leaving the theater and all of us standing around in a circle for about 20, 30 minutes, all slowly unraveling the bullshit that we saw, because it's one of those things where you watch something like this and on a technical level, it's really incredible. And there's certain things about it that are pretty good, I think.
The visuals themselves really, like, if you just showed me stills of the film, or you just showed me scenes without any dialogue or any context whatsoever, I'd say they were incredible. The visual, and that's kind of a similar common denominator with all of these films that receive this high praise, is between 1917 and Dunkirk, all that kind of stuff. They receive this high praise pretty much solely on the visuals, and everybody seems to be okay with that. I don't think people actually, if you broke it down and people thought critically about it, they would have a different opinion, but people tend to just like fly off the handle and say they like something just by something as shallow as how the visuals are and stuff. It's like, oh, it looks, the artwork and the actual scenes themselves, like the way, like the visuals and everything are so amazing that it has to be good. You can sort of like try to justify everything around it from that point.
Yeah. So every decade or so, kind of like with the Terminator franchise, there seems to be this sort of attempt to revive the Alien series as well.
Yeah, they keep trying, yeah.
There was the first two, and they're just coasting off the excellence of the first two movies. Alien and its sequel, Aliens, are both excellent movies in different ways. And then every movie and kind of like with Terminator 1, Terminator 2, both excellent movies. And then every movie that's come out after that is sort of coasting off the excellence of those original two films,
yeah,
right?
They're just milking it out, yeah.
It's like if they kept making Godfather movies.
Right, like every decade there's
after
a new
the third one totally sucked. Well, actually, I think it's okay, but most people think Godfather 3 is inferior.
Well, it's the lowest one.
It's the lowest of the two.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's the lowest of the two.
But if they kept making them every 5 or 10 years after that, like Francis Ford Coppola just kept making these movies for some reason, and it's just like, man, you gotta stop. Just let it die.
Right.
Let Robert De Niro and Al Pacino or whoever do something else.
And they go on to do, well, here's the thing. He was on to something there because Robert De Niro and Al Pacino just kind of went on to do the same characters in like every other movie that they're in.
Well, Martin Scorsese kept using them.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of just did the same thing.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, after Aliens, all the other movies after that just kind of gradually got shittier and shittier in different ways.
If we could include, and I just, because these movies cross over so much, if we could include a Predator movie in this, I will give my recommendations to that Predator movie with Adrian Brody.
Oh, Predators.
I still think that movie is awesome.
I actually never saw it.
Really?
No.
Okay, so
I missed it somehow.
So that movie is it's great. It's got Lawrence Fishburne, who is doing essentially the only role that Lawrence Fishburne can do anymore, which is like homeless guy. Like I don't know why I just keep seeing him kind of do that. I feel like I've seen him just be like, I'm a crazy guy, and every single movie he just becomes like he's just somebody with some sort of weird psychosis. But
like Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah, like Forrest Whitaker kind of is the same thing, you know. He's got something that's like, all right, well, okay. But Predators is I would fully recommend that movie. It's awesome. There are some sweet scenes in that, and it makes sense, and it's simple, and it doesn't try to do too much with the whole universe of the Predators and stuff. It's really good. But anyways, moving on. Plowing ahead here.
Let's just plow into it. Let's just get right into Prometheus. To get the positive stuff out of the way first, which I like to do before we just tear into it, like we like to do. I like the way this movie starts. There's some really nice kind of Terrence Malick-esque camera pans across this primordial Earth. And the whole initial creation sequence.
This movie is very successful in establishing its tone.
Is pretty cool, and the music and the score matches everything really well. It really set the tone very nicely and gave me the expectation that, ooh, this is cool. There's going to be this great mystery surrounding this here, and I'm on board to see how it all gets figured out, right?
And I also, but at the same time, I remember watching this movie, and I remember initially giving it the benefit of the doubt because I really did like how it began, and I liked throughout the film, the art style and the actual visual aspect is amazing, and I can see why people let that sort of carry their experience all the way through the film, and they come out thinking that it's good. They don't allow themselves to go any deeper into it. They're just so kind of overwhelmed by the visual experience because it's the same concept that Avatar tried to do, where it's like, we're going to try and overwhelm you with crazy visuals so that you don't notice that the story is dog shit and the acting is dog shit and nothing makes any sense and everybody sucks.
Yeah, the only things that keep Prometheus from being unwatchable are, yes, the visuals, the cinematography, a lot of the production and creature design, everything to do with the overall production side of things looks great, and I think part of the reason why is because they got H.R. Geiger back.
Oh, yeah, the GOAT.
Or at least he threw a notebook of some stuff at him.
I mean, he has so much.
He probably had some stuff lying around going like, yeah, you can use this.
Watching that documentary about H.R. Geiger and like kind of the last years of his life, where I can't remember what it was called.
I think we watched that one together.
Yeah. And it was a documentary about H.R. Geiger and sort of his final days, and he was just a tour around his house and showing all of his artwork and stuff. He has so much material. He was still doing stuff up until right before he died, and he had definitely tons of material that they could use. But going back to what I was saying earlier is that I kind of had a 50-50 feeling when this movie began because like I said, I really liked the way it looked. I liked the premise it was setting up, but I sort of had like an oh boy moment because the premise they were setting up is something very huge in terms like existentially huge. You know, like they're trying to tackle the origins of humanity and the origins, like the purpose of Earth, and like these very like, you know, existential questions that are, for one thing, extremely vague and very lofty and very difficult to boil them down into a narrative, I would say.
The mysteries of the universe are the driving force. The mysteries of the origin of life and the universe in general. These are the driving forces behind this whole film.
Yeah.
Which is in itself a problem a little bit, because if that shit was more like in the background, kind of like how it is in the original Alien movie.
Right. It's something that's sort of like it's there, but they're dealing with more localized things.
You're wondering where that alien came from.
Yeah.
You're wondering how this whole future.
You don't got time to think about it because it's in the vents.
Yeah, but you're left to think about that on your own while the movie's just there to tell its story and focus on the characters, which is why it works so well.
It's also just a straight up good monster movie, you know? Like to me, it's
I
actually like have a hard time sort of like placing the original Alien films in either science fiction or horror. I mean, I know that they're a combination of both, but the way that the tone and everything about the film, it leans in more towards horror than it does science fiction, because the science fiction stuff is sort of like just the set piece. And I feel like when I watch something that's like science fiction, it deals more with those existential questions. It deals more with that stuff, which is what Prometheus tried to do. It tried to lean in more to that end, but it couldn't figure out how to do it. So it just fell back on, we're just going to make a horror movie.
We're just going to make a horror movie, and we're going to throw in some tropes from some of the other Alien movies, which
a lot of
was
fan
some
service,
of what
a lot of vague fan service.
Exactly.
And I mean, that was kind of I remember this. They actually did a good job with the marketing of this film, because I remember the marketing from this film. I remember the discussions on like, is this an Alien prequel? Is it not an Alien prequel? And then Ridley Scott kind of saying it wasn't. But then later on, he was like, well, it might be. And he was just basically like playing coy. He was like, ooh, I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. And he was, right before it came out, he was like, yeah, it's a hard prequel to Alien. It's within that universe. It's within that whole thing. It's how it all started, essentially.
Yeah, well, they basically marketed this movie the same way they promoted the original Alien film. I remember that the trailer for Prometheus is modeled after the same trailer for the original Alien movie. And the original Alien movie from the late 70s had such an awesome trailer.
It really did.
It's just the alarm sound from the ship cut to different intense moments in the movie, just kind of flashing at you.
Right.
And then at the end, the alien lettering just slowly shapes itself over the screen, and you're just left with this sort of very ominous,
super ahead of its time,
very just feeling of dread that really sends a shiver down your spine, and it's so good. And then Prometheus did the same thing, and I think the trailer for Prometheus is really good in the same way. Unfortunately, the movie you see does not measure up hardly at all. Not nearly as much, at least, right?
Right. So essentially, as the movie begins, we get a scene of one of these humanoid architect aliens coming down into the primordial Earth and sacrificing himself, throwing his DNA or whatever into the waters, and that's supposedly the catalyst to life multiplying and becoming prevalent on the planet. And then we go into the future, where essentially there are scientists studying these cave paintings and studying these several different cave paintings on several different parts of the world, and they find they all match up. And the movie is essentially them investigating that and discovering that those cave paintings are a star map or a map to a planet somewhere. And so they're like, fuck it, let's build this this multi-trillion dollar spaceship and go and go to these, just because of these cave paintings, let's build this giant fucking spaceship and let's go and figure it out.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, it's awesome. But it's hard to know where to honestly begin with Prometheus because there is so much going on. Essentially, the whole project, the Prometheus project, is funded by Wayland Industries, which is like a conglomerate corp, mega Walmart, Apple company in the future that probably owns everything. It's what Amazon will eventually be.
Eventually, Google, Amazon, Facebook.
It'll all merge into one.
And Time Warner and all these companies, or maybe all these tech companies merge together. And yeah, it's just Unu Tech, Comcorp, Conglomero,
right?
Whatever.
And, it's our dystopian corporatocracy, corporocratic. There you go. There you go. I worked that one out. When you're making up words, you gotta figure it out for a second.
I think one of the best places to really start with is the characters.
Right.
Or what we would call characters. I say characters very loosely. They all have names. They're all played by actors.
Right.
They all have faces you recognize.
Mm-hmm. Michael Fassbender, is very nicely shaven. I remember that.
Yeah, the movie starts with, after the opening scene, it starts with him just kind of hanging around, passing the time on the ship. He's dribbling basketballs.
David, the onboard android who is played by Michael Fassbender, who's kind of the caretaker of the ship.
Yeah, he's watching movies. He's quoting Lawrence of Arabia, and that was one of the moments that I felt like something was wrong. When they show clips from, I didn't know it at this point, but they show clips from a better movie in the middle of your shitty movie.
Yeah, it's probably it's a good rule of thumb is that don't have clips of better movies in your crappy movie.
Yeah, like there's a Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode where in one of the movies they watch, they have clips or references to Casablanca in it.
Yeah,
and it's like, hey, movie, don't do that. I'd rather be watching that right now. Instead, I'm watching this. All right, cool.
I'm watching Mothman
Never remind
Prophecies.
your audience that they could be watching something better than
right
what you're showing. But yeah, then eventually the crew all wakes up. You get introduced to everybody else on the ship. Like you said, they're all day laborers or just the world's shittiest scientists.
The world's shittiest scientists.
I could boil down their characters to like one or two sentences.
Oh, go for it.
So, besides Michael Fassbender, he's the closest, or David, he's the closest thing we actually have to like a fleshed out character. And I think part of it is just because he delivers such a great performance that elevates the script beyond what it originally had on paper, right? So you have our protagonist, you have Noomi Rapace. I think I'm pronouncing her name right. She's a Swedish actress. She was in the girl with the dragon tattoo movies.
Right, yeah.
Might be what you recognize her from. The Swedish ones, anyway.
Yeah, the better ones.
The better ones. You're introduced to her husband. He's played by some guy. He looks like every fucking guy. And then
the husband is so funny because I don't know why they didn't just get Channing Tatum to play him.
That would have been sweet.
Because
that would have been way better.
It would have been way better because he would have totally leaned into the whole like, sup, babe? Like, we're gonna go down this planet and go aliens. We're gonna fight them. It's gonna be great. Yeah, fuck that, babe. This is bullshit. Like the entire time, it's like the dude's about ready to just go fucking lay down and on the basketball court. Like, I don't understand how he's a scientist.
Yeah, he reminds me of someone who probably really likes the I fucking love science Facebook group.
Right.
And loves Neil deGrasse Tyson and all those fucking people.
Yeah, he's dope.
Oh man, yeah. He fucking told that guy off. Oh, just demolishing that guy with scientific facts.
Watch Neil deGrasse Tyson own some retard.
Watch Neil deGrasse Tyson own Katy Perry.
Yeah,
in her own
she's so
video promotion.
Stupid. She doesn't know anything about stars.
Yeah, dumb bitch.
Dumb fucking bitch.
But yeah, we're introduced to him. We got Aegis Elba. He's the captain of the ship. He's pretty chill, I guess.
Man, I love me some Idris Elba. He's kind of sucks in this film.
Even if he's wasted, he's still good.
He's drunk the entire time.
Oh,
I don't know what he's a David Kerrigan the entire time. Like he is so fucking wasted. I mean, maybe that was like just he was trying to do something like that with the character to put that off, but it's just he really phoned it in. But I give Idris Elba a total pass. When it comes to Prometheus, I'm like, all right, who cares? Like all the good actors like went on to do good stuff too. Like
Yeah, well, like Charlize Theron is in this movie as well.
right.
And she's been really, really good in plenty of other movies. Here, she's just, I'm the...
God, she's such a dumb bitch in this film too. Like her character is such a dumb bitch the entire time. It's so funny. Like, oh, what's the quickest way to kill another person with a flamethrower?
Right, yeah.
We have all these like shotguns and guns, but I'm gonna choose the most painful, most unreliable, like slowest method possible.
That's you operating the flamethrower, isn't it?
You bet your sweet ass it was. Yeah.
Was you?
Yeah, and let me tell you that's one shit fuck crazy weapon you do not want to be on the wrong side of. Boy, oh boy.
Well, she plays the cold daughter of Wayland Sr., and her whole character just pretty much boils down to, I just want to do this stupid mission, and I hate my dad because he loves this David robot more than he loves me.
Right.
You never loved me. You never loved anyone, Dad. And it's boring, and it's tired.
It's not really that aspect of her character has no real weight on anything that happens in the film. There's no arc for her at all. She just is a cold, angry person, and she dies a cold, angry person.
Yeah.
It's nothing. It doesn't really. Her character serves no purpose whatsoever.
She finally calls her dad father at the end when she's trying to get something from him, and that just falls completely flat because you realize, oh, that's all this was leading towards. So that's the whole character arc.
Yeah, great. All right, moving on.
Yeah. So we got all those characters in there. There's some other people who are just part of the crew, but
they're there to
they don't matter.
They're there to get killed by the aliens.
They're there just to be xenomorph or alien fodder.
Yeah, they're there. They serve no other purpose, and it's so funny because some of the other characters are like, oi, I'm a geologist. Yeah, I'm a fucking geologist. I love rocks.
I'm here because I love rocks and I love money. I'm just here to get paid.
It's like that's the guy. I love how look. Number one, you're sending this interplanetary mission. You're sending this mission across the stars. It requires hypersleep to get to the destination. It's this big. It's the most expensive thing the planet has ever done. Like the whole planet put their resources together to make this ship, primarily because there's this small sort of subplot that they're kind of looking for a new planet to colonize. They're kind of exploring that, like Earth. It's like 100 years in the future from now, and I'm assuming there's some sort of climate related underlying problem going on to where we're looking for another planet to possibly colonize.
Yeah, that's explored further in the sequel to this.
It's explored further in the
but yeah,
sequel,
it's definitely in there.
My point is this is a very important mission. It's a very important thing that they're doing. It's not just a stab in the dark, which it kind of is a little bit. But why would you not just have a crew full of David?
Maybe they could only afford one.
Oh, okay, so you can build a ship that can travel light years and light years and it has all this stuff on it, and you get one David. Maybe you have a couple Davids. Maybe you have three. So that if one breaks, we have another one.
I think it's because it's a movie and a bad movie. And
why do we have all these idiots as the crew? Why these guys?
We're not going to send
the most underqualified people. And that's the point I'm actually trying to get to here is that I really don't like in movies how characters are played down in terms of intelligence and in terms of their relatability to the audience. So, because they're like, oh, well, we can't have a bunch of characters in this film that are all super smarty pants, brilliant geniuses, and the best of the best. Where these are the guys that we weeded out of millions of people to be selected for this mission, and it's up to them. It's no, we don't do that. They used to do that in older movies. In older movies, people used to enjoy watching people that were really good at their jobs perform well. You know what I mean? And now it's like people want to see dum-dums fuck it up. And I just think that's a shame, you know? It's a shame because it just sets up every single film like this is kind of set up the same way where it's like the only reason anything goes wrong is because of somebody's dumb mistakes. The only reason anything happens bad, the only reason bad things happen to anybody, especially in these films, is because of just pure stupidity. Like pure, unabashed, like unforgivable stupidity. And I think it just takes me out of the film, like completely. It just takes me out because I'm like, man, what's wrong with competence?
Seriously.
Why can't we just, what's wrong with that? Like, why is it such a thing in films where you can't have competent people? You have to have these fucking lollygagging artards out there just like, well, let's just, fuck it, let's take our helmets off. Like, oh, there's a fine planet. Let's go poke around there for a little bit. Like, oh, okay, there's an alien snake thing. Let me touch it.
Yeah, I want to get into that shit, all right? So we're introduced to these guys. They land on the planet. They're about to go exploring.
Oh,
and
sorry,
okay,
one
sure.
last thing is when they're coming down to the planet and they see structures, they're like, yeah, look at that. Nobody is this is something that happened in Tenet too with the whole like, oh, there's time travel? Well, cool. How does it work? Blah, blah, blah. It's like there's so much of that in this film, in these two movies where it's like they're like, oh yeah, there's aliens. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, so they're on an uncharted planet, right?
Right.
Never touched by anyone, or at least anyone human, right?
Right.
They enter a giant facility, a kind of spaceship that they found. They say that that appears to be a spaceship, right?
Yeah.
And they see these exoskeleton suits of these things they call the engineers, who are
Yeah.
supposed to be the creators of life on Earth.
They see like statues kind of the
Yeah.
of the aliens.
They
yeah.
see all this ancient architecture and statues.
Yeah, these giant temple walls, like huge stone carved out heads and everything.
And there's just such a little sense of awe or wonderment. They actually show it on the screen to the people on the ship while the other guys are off exploring. And it's like, hey, do you see this? Do you see this? And like, yep, copy that.
Yeah.
I see it.
I see it. It looks. Oh, well, ain't that just the darndest thing?
And look, if you saw this shit on Earth, it would be blowing your fucking mind, right?
Oh, yeah. If you saw like a temple, if I went to a place on Earth that was a temple that looked like that, or a place that looked like that, I would be absolutely floored.
So, and it's even bigger when it's on an alien planet.
I thought it was insane when they come down to the planet and they see water.
Yeah.
It's like, holy shit, there's fucking water here.
Yeah.
It's raining. Holy fuck.
So, I want to get into Helmet Gate real quick.
Hashtag HelmetGate.
I like to call it that. I'm going with it.
Absolutely.
I'm proud of my hashtag there. So, this is the point in the movie where I officially realized I'm watching a shitty movie.
Yeah.
With dumb people and
they're gonna get bad things are gonna happen to them because of this.
And the director or the filmmakers also think I'm stupid, and the whole audience is stupid because the fact that this was kept in the movie and just so nonchalantly
it wasn't
done.
just kept in the movie. It's something that permeates throughout all the way into the second into Alien Covenant as well, to where at least I'll give Prometheus this. At least they started with helmets.
They did. They had space helmets on.
In the Covenant, they just walk right out without anything on. They're like, yep, it's fine.
Yeah. It's worse in Covenant, I would say.
It's so much worse. Going back to that.
So, okay, so to refresh, yeah, they land on the planet. They have their helmets on. They go and explore the this inner temple or facility or ship.
Yeah, they read their Apple Watches and it's
they read their telecommunicators or their little wristwatch devices, and one of them goes, "Oh, the air appears to be breathable. There's oxygen. They are terraforming here. Oh, well, hey guys, I'm going to do something crazy." And he takes off his helmet, and they're like, "See? It's great." And then
they don't even really try to stop him that hard.
No, they're like,
hey. They're like, hey, it's probably not a good idea. All right, if you want to.
And then one of the other scientist people goes, "He's right. It's even cleaner." it's even cleaner than on Earth. And then they all just subsequently take their helmets off. And
You
I'm
are
just wondering-
you are on an alien planet inside of a structure that they made. A place we didn't even know. They went to this planet because they just saw that that's where the map led them. They had no prior knowledge that there was anything on the planet living or dead or anything like that. There was none of that. Okay? They had they scanned like the atmosphere and they knew that it was like the air was shitty outside of the structures or outside, initially they saw the air was bad. And then they go down and they're on a place totally just light years away. They have no idea what could be living down there because you got to think that hey, if there's oxygen, it's breathable, there's water, there might be something fucking alive in here.
I'm just wondering, why do they feel the need to do that in the first place? Because
What's the point?
I was just thinking, are the helmets uncomfortable? Are they really cumbersome to wear?
It's one of those existential moments.
Because
It's like a cathartic thing where
why not just take off your whole suit? Why just the helmet?
it's a cathartic thing where it's like the guy is like, well, look, I'm here on this planet. It's an amazing experience. Like I want to breathe this air. And I get that. But that's stupid.
Yeah.
Any scientist, anybody, any competent person would not have done that. And it's just, I don't know, man.
So
It just takes you right out. It's just, wow, okay, cool.
yeah, after that, some of them have to stay behind. Some of them go back to the ship, and the other guys are just poking around, exploring around in there. And yeah, like you said, the rock guy, the geologist, and this other guy who's just some stupid guy are just poking around. He sees this kind of freaky looking snake thing.
Yeah, this an alien creature.
Like, you wouldn't do that to a snake on Earth, right? You wouldn't come up to a king cobra and be like, "Hey, little guy."
Yeah.
Hey.
So they encounter this, this snake, horrific leech looking lamprey thing that slithers up to them and postures and looks aggressive, and it one of the scientists is like a biologist guy. He thinks he can like cuddle with it. He thinks that he can pat it on the head and it will become his friend. Which I don't know. Like, yeah, I agree with you. Like, even I know most biologists that I've seen on TV or like videos and stuff like that, they are extremely like vigilant and cautious around every type of dangerous wildlife. And they say explicitly over and over and over again, in reality, if you come across a rattlesnake, you should just leave it alone.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I get that it's, again, yes, we know this is a movie and it's not, anything to go off of, in terms of real life. But at the same time, when something is this incompetent, it just makes it not believable, which takes you out of the movie, which breaks the whole immersion of it, which is like the whole point of this stuff.
Right, yeah, exactly. And then just dumb stuff just kind of keeps happening from there, right? You'd think that would maybe be...
The only smart thing that was ever said was the rock geologist guy. As soon as he saw the dead body of the alien, he was like, I want to leave.
Yeah, I want to go back to the ship. You guys can keep
That was the
being
smartest
idiots.
thing that was said throughout the entire film.
In a way, he's the smartest character in the movie. Yeah, that happens. He gets bitten, and he dies. And then also, it like wraps around him and suffocates him. It gets in his suit and just kind of chokes him to death.
Yeah.
And then the other guy gets his helmet broken, and he just falls into a pool of the black goo.
Yeah, the goo.
Which is sort of like this life and death force that can either sort of help create a being or just kill you.
Yeah, it's like antimatter almost, where it just, if it comes in contact with another biological thing, it destroys it. But if it is introduced a certain way into the environment, it can create life.
Right. So in the case of Rockman, it just turns him into Monster Man.
Right.
And he comes back to the ship and they have to kill him. And then the other guy. Oh, speaking of the black goop, David just decides. Well, he takes one of the cylinders, right? And
yeah. So this is gonna be a continuing conversation on David. I could do an entire episode on David alone.
Sure.
Because he starts acting funny pretty early on in the film. He starts acting a little bit weird, and we don't know why. It's assumed at the very beginning of the film. We're kind of explained as to what David is and what his main directive is, and that is to, ensure the safety of the crew, to operate the ship because he's a robot. He's an android. He can understand and solve problems like instantly. So he makes the perfect tool to be used to like help operate the ship while everybody else is in hypersleep and just kind of analyze things. And it makes sense why he's there. And what doesn't make sense is his fascination with all the creatures and all the stuff that's happening in there. Because, well, for one thing, like I said before, nobody knew that any of this stuff was here at all. So you're telling me that David just assumed on his own, he decided to start fucking around with all the alien shit.
It wasn't explained at all. And I feel like this is one of those deleted scene situations where maybe he
you could
was
be right.
getting some kind of orders from Wayland or something. Like, hey, he brought that thing with the black goo back, right? Maybe fuck around with that a little bit.
Well, I mean, the whole point of the twist of the movie is that Wayland was just, the whole point of the trip was for Wayland to find like the Fountain of Youth.
Yeah, he wanted to figure out a way for the engineer people to cure him of
being old.
oldness.
Yeah, cure him of olditis.
And but yeah, so David takes one of these canisters back, found in the place they were at, and yeah, he just takes a little bit of it or a little bit of that black goo stuff. He just pops it into the husband's drink. He's just hanging around at his pool table, just getting drunk, just like, oh man, what a bummer, dude.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we didn't get the answers we were looking for.
Oh no, we didn't just discover an alien planet with structures on it, and they found a dead alien body and brought it onto the ship. And they found a dead alien body and the head of the body, and they found basically the most important.
They just got there too.
The most important scientific discovery ever made ever.
The only reason they went back to the ship was because there was a fucking storm coming, and there was a
storm coming.
There was a storm happening in the Terraverse or whatever the fuck, and So he's like, "Oh man, we didn't get the answers we're looking for." I'm like, "Dude, you've been here like a few hours. You're gonna we'll go back."
What answers? Like it's just too. He wants to know. It's like what's what's the meaning of life? Like, that's all you. What do you want to know? It's so stupid.
So anyway, David spikes his drink, and he's like, "All right." He drinks it, and then he goes off to fuck his wife, and then he's infected with this thing. He unknowingly infects his wife with part of it too.
And this is funny because when this scene happens, when they have their sex scene, it's like later on it calls back and it gives you it basically tells you the reason why there was a sex scene at all is because she becomes pregnant, so it becomes important later. But the way it's introduced into the film, it seemed like it came off to me like this is just here. Like the plot and the narrative didn't set itself up for anything really intimate to happen between these characters at all. Like the chemistry is so bad between these two people that you don't feel like they actually love each other ever. Like they don't, like the romance is not established like what at all, to the point where it's like when they have their sex scene, it's so forced. It's like it reminded me of the Star Wars prequels with Anakin and Natalie Portman, whatever the fuck her stupid character was.
Padme?
Padme, yeah.
Queen Abu Dhabi.
Queen Abu Dhabi.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere. Not like here. Here everything is soft and smooth.
It reminded me of their relationship a little bit. Not quite that level of bad, because that's the worst, probably the worst love relationship in a movie I've ever seen. The worst romance I've ever seen in a movie ever. But this in Prometheus, it's just not established. So when they have their sex scene, it feels so forced. And I was thinking to myself, like, and I was laughing about it. I was thinking to myself, what if this is just here and nothing comes from it after it? Like, it doesn't call back to it, you know? And that's kind of how it felt going forward until way at the end, or way towards in the third act, it's like, oh, okay, that's why they had the sex scene, because he's pregnant with the alien and shit.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said, if these characters weren't introduced as husband and wife, they could just easily not be
You would not see it at all.
together
You would
at
just not
all.
see it
They
at
would
all.
just be scientist buddies,
Yeah.
and that would be
Because
far enough.
the movie itself is very asexual. But when the movie does try to include some kind of sexuality into it, that's when it always feels like, ugh, you know, like that's
Right.
when it
Well,
always
like with Idris Elba and Charlize Theron.
Yeah.
There's just like this sort of random scene where they're hanging out, or
Yeah.
he's just watching the people
he's
who are still inside the
yeah,
engineer
it's late night.
temple,
Yeah.
and he just starts talking to Charlize Theron, and he's just like basically like, hey, you want to fuck?
Yeah.
She's
They're
like, how dare you?
They're talking about something totally different until he's just like, yeah, hey, you want to fuck?
And she's like, yeah. She's like, how dare you? But at the same time, you're Aegis Elba, so yeah, come to my room in like 10 minutes.
I don't care how drunk you are. You get over here.
So the husband gets flamethrowered to death after they find out he's infected, and he just kind of welcomes it.
the goop that David put in his drink like causes him to essentially like just explode on the inside.
Yeah.
He gets this disease kind of thing where he becomes crazy.
So for some reason, in every Alien movie, at least as far as I can tell, has to have something being killed by a flamethrower.
It's as is tradition.
As is tradition, because Ripley did it in the first two Alien movies. I think it's in Alien 3.
Yeah, but did she kill an alien with it?
Yes.
So that makes sense. Like, that would be the callback. If you're going to do a callback to something like that, you would have the flamethrower kill an alien. Well, they did this callback with the flamethrower, like I mentioned earlier. It's like the husband character shows back up to the ship all fucking messed up from that thing, and Charlize Theron just flamethrowers him. It's
Yeah, because in Aliens, yeah, she was torching the alien nest with all the eggs.
yeah.
And then, like, in Alien...
Which makes sense. That's what you would use to kill that.
Yeah, and in Alien Resurrection, she torches all the other Ripley clones. You know, the kill me.
Yeah.
And she just flamethrowers them because that's a painless way to
Yeah,
kill
it's
something.
It's super. It's real fast.
It's the most
quick.
humane way
It's the most humane way to
to
do it.
execute anyone is with
Yeah.
a flamethrower. I guess there's worse ways to execute somebody, but
And what's crazy is that like the wife is there, seeing her husband all fucked up and dying, and he's like, kill me, like do it. It'll be better for the whole mission if.
now he's just like, come at me, bro. Do
Yeah,
it.
do it. It's just like for her own sanity and her own thing, she just like watches her husband get like cooked to death. And I just think like, man, wouldn't you be just like completely broken after that?
Yeah.
She seems to kind of just gonna move on. I don't know.
Well, because, okay, this is another trope. Every Alien movie has a fucking badass chick on there.
Right.
Because
Hell
they don't...
Yeah.
And because they don't have Sigourney Weaver anymore, who was like perfect at playing that kind of role,
Yeah.
they keep trying to make it happen again with like a different actress. Not to say like the actress in Prometheus is bad. She's been good in other things, of course. But if they want to make her like Ripley, and this also happens in Alien Covenant too, we'll get to that. But yeah, they're just not really selling me on it. And from there, she doesn't have much time to worry about her husband being flamethrowered because
Oh, right.
she's
yeah.
pregnant.
Yeah, that's straight.
And she has a very...
But it's established that she can't get pregnant. And
yeah.
And then she finds out that David tells her that she is, and he's all creepy about it. And
Yeah, he seems to just kind of know that was going to happen. Yeah, so our lead character has a very traumatic and intense and also very silly and ridiculous alien abortion scene, which, at least for me, is
I kind of liked it.
a highlight of the film.
I liked the scene itself. The premise of the scene, I think, is great. It's set up well. They set up that machine that can perform surgery. Essentially, you lay in it, and like robot hands can perform surgery on you. And they sort of set it up before they show the machine off a little bit at the beginning of the movie, which is one of the few, like, I guess, competent things that they do in the film is they properly set something up and use it later.
Yeah, it's Chekhov's gun.
Yeah.
You know,
And
you show a gun early on in the movie, well, you better use that gun later.
you gotta fucking use a gun. And basically she's, like the alien's about to burst out of her stomach, and so she goes in there and has it removed, and it's this awesome scene where the alien gets kind of like pulled out of her stomach, and it's like snapping at her and stuff, and I was like, that's great.
When the movie leans into the body horror stuff,
Yeah.
it's pretty good. Like, there's another part where they recover one of the engineer heads, and
Yeah,
they try
yeah.
and get it to be alive or something again,
Yeah,
or
and
they
it-
try and bring it back.
And explodes.
And it just kind of wakes up, and it's like, and its head just explodes into fucking
scanner
to
style.
fucking gory goop, and like that shit's great when it happens. Unfortunately, the whole sequence doesn't really have much of a point, really, because
They never come back to it.
because once she, because none of the crew knew about this besides David, and she runs off to do this on her own, and when she comes out of it, she's just kind of sore around there
Oh yeah, when she goes and gets the abortion done
after having that thing
the C-section.
amputated or C-sectioned off her,
Yeah.
and having her stomach just violently stapled and lasered shut. It's like, okay, I'm willing to like have a suspension of disbelief, but I know for sure if that was to actually happen to somebody, no matter how many shots of like morphine she got there, they kept on doing that. They kept on penning her.
They kept on showing her like just constantly just ripping morphine. And
You wouldn't be able to move around that much.
I don't know. Like maybe you could,
Or maybe, I don't know.
I can kind of I can suspend disbelief in that because, well, the scene of the whole C-section scene that happens is a great. It's a good one. It's a good scene. I'd rather it be in the movie than not in the movie. And in order for her to kind of like continue with the plot, she has to be able to move around a little bit. And so I sort of give that a bit of a pass.
Yeah, they couldn't have her just in a wheelchair.
Yeah, I mean, it would just kind of, I feel like the movie would grind to a complete halt if that happened,
Fair enough. So
I mean, they could have done something with it and had her be all just, they could have had other characters, carry the plot forward because, I mean, it's not like what they do with her is any good, really. It's not like, you see in the next movie, it's like, it doesn't matter what happens to her. It's just, I mean, it kind of does, but it's a background kind of thing that comes into play way later.
After that, Old Man Wayland is discovered to actually still be on the ship.
Right.
And it's supposed to be this big twist, but it was just kind of like, okay.
It was just okay. It was like just the next scene. It just essentially
Because you only really see him in one scene early on where he's just a hologram delivering this presentation to the crew after they wake up about the mission and why they're doing it. And he also throws a little jab at David for no reason, saying, David's the most advanced thing we've ever created, but he doesn't have one thing that we have, which is a soul. Which is such a hack fucking... there's some lines in this. Let me digress a little bit. Mm-hmm. So there's some lines in this where I feel like they were trying to hint at some sort of larger theme or some sort of part of character development, but it just falls completely flat because it's only like one line or two. And the scene with like the Rock Man and Dumb Guy when they're in the engineering place, what is it? A temple? A ship?
you mean like not the star map room, but just like
the hallways.
The hall, yeah. Well, they're in. It becomes a ship later, but it's more like an installation, I guess.
Yeah, like
it's like just the structure, the temple.
There's one throwaway line where the dumb guy says like, "Oh, we got to get out of here," and they're like, "Oh," and the rock guy is like, "I'll come with you," and just this line where he says, "And I thought you were the crazy one." I'm like, why? Because he introduced himself in a friendly way earlier on.
Yeah, like when
He's like, "Hi, nice to meet you," and he's like, "What are you doing? What's your business trying to shake my hand?
Yeah,
Fuck you.
And then later on,
I don't care about you. I'm not here to make friends. I'm just here to get money and get." It's like, or.
All right, so your character is a character. You want money, and you like rocks. That's it.
It would have been funny if they got Jason Statham to play him.
He basically was. He was like if they put Jason Statham, put Jason Statham and like Conor McGregor in like a hedron in like a hedron collider, and they just fucking shot him around that donut, and they just crash into each other. That's what we get. He's like a Gears of War character.
Yeah, exactly. A fucking space grug.
Yeah.
So yeah, old man Waylon, you find out he's still on the ship, and David takes him and some of the rest of them.
Gets his feet washed.
Yeah, he gets his feet washed. He takes him to the engineering quarters, and they revive the engineer, and David tries to communicate with him some kind of language.
It's like Arabic or something.
Some kind of...
Which is like, it's so stupid because... Why would it speak any language on Earth?
I was just wondering what the hell language it's supposed to be.
And honestly, like, the entire... Okay, so the twist of the film was that, well, they originally thought that they were on this kind of exploring mission, or they were getting answers because they found these cave paintings all around the world that depicted the same sort of image of these 5 stars they found out. And it's one of those things where all the cave paintings were like hundreds of years apart from each other and thousands of miles away from each other, that it can't just be a coincidence. It's got to be something here to it. And so they're following that logic, and they figured out, based on the cave paintings, they found a star map that matched the cave paintings, and that's where the planet is, and that's how they got the directions to the planet. And so that's all the information they had. That's it. That's all the information they had. And so they didn't even know that there were such things as these engineers. How could they? There's no way they knew about them. And so they get to this planet, and they happen to be here, and they happen to find one of them still alive in a little hypersleep chamber. And they think it's a good idea to just be like, like wake up, bitch. Like, wake up. Like, just I want to talk to you. And they open it up, and Waylon's plan is to ask him to make him young again. And I'm just thinking, like, man, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. This is a childish plot. This is it's like if a 10-year-old wrote a script, you know? Like, it's really that level of incompetence where it's like, what do you think is going to happen? At least the movie does do what would happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to give the movie a point here because it does do what you think it should do, which is the alien just says, just picks up people and starts ripping them in half.
Yeah, the engineer guy just kind of hulks out and just starts, like you said, just throwing people around and tearing their heads off, which kind of makes me question what was the point of leaving those star maps in those ancient cave paintings in the first place.
The point of the cave paintings makes no sense whatsoever because we find out later that the planet that they're on is not the alien planet where they are from, where the engineers are from. It's like this just desolate planet where they test weapons. Why would they leave a star map to that on Earth?
Yeah, if they're going to lead them to their sort of battle station only to just want to kill them.
Yeah. And then when they do show up, they follow the star map and they show up and say, "Hi, we're here." And he just starts ripping everybody's heads off.
There's some kind of disconnect there for sure.
You know, they have they're following these weird sort of prompts, and the only time the plot of the actual, like, the way the movie moves through its narrative all has to do with people just getting punished for being stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only thing that moves anything throughout the film. We never actually, like, learn anything really. about the engineers. You learn more about them in Covenant a little bit. Not actually too much more. You just see more of them.
Yeah.
You see their planet, but you don't know anything about them.
You see their planet and their city, I guess.
Yeah, but you don't learn anything about why they do what they do, other than the fact that they made essentially like a biological weapon.
Right. So it turns out that the engineer, they actually want to destroy the Earth. They actually want to destroy their creation. You're not really sure why,
Yeah,
but that's their plan. That's why he gets back into his cool fucking cockpit and starts putting in the coordinates to basically take the ship to launch an attack on Earth and just be done with all of the human species. So when they realize this, they go back to the ship and they try and stop them from getting the ship to go far enough to do that, which leads to a lot more stupidity.
which is my favorite dumb moment in the entire film. Like more than Helmet Gate, more than anything else, they see that they all find out one way or another that the alien guy, the engineer, is going to fly to Earth and destroy it. So their only plan is to ram the ship they flew there into his ship as it's taking off. And it's kind of like the big finale. And Idris Elba, who's the captain of the ship, and he's got his two like navigators. He's got his Sulu and his Spock on his flanks, and he tells them, he's just like, he tells Charlize Theron is there too, and he was like, tell her, hey, you might as well, you gotta go to that escape pod because me and the boys here, we're about to kill ourselves. Like,
Yeah, they're just gonna kamikaze the ship.
yeah, and Idris Elba comes up with the plan. He's just like, there is one way we could stop it, and the two guys are like, totally like cool. They're stoked to kill themselves for the plan, for the cause. They're stoked to die. I mean, I understand if Idris Elba told you to. Even if Idris Elba told me to do something like that, I probably wouldn't do it. I'd think about it for a second, but.
Well, there's no question from them about doing that. None of them try and
They're
suggest.
like laughing and joking about it. They're like, haha, yeah, let's run, kill ourselves.
They don't even try and suggest another plan or ask them, hey, is there anything else
I mean,
we
that's
could do?
that's a good crew.
Instead,
That's a good crew
is there
right
anything
there.
we can do besides just killing ourselves?
That's a good soldier. A good soldier doesn't ask questions like that.
And instead their response is, hey, we made it this far. We might as well just end it here. Aye, Captain. Just
we made it this far. We might as well die.
Does that mean our bet is off or whatever?
Yeah, they make some sort of joke. It's just like, oh, hey, you owe me $20. Yeah, I'll give it to you on the other side, brother. It's just, I saw that, I was like, man, like these guys are they're totally fine with this kamikaze thing right now. There's no intense like questioning. Like even if they still did it, you could have that happen.
Yeah.
But it would be more intense and more emotional. It would be a scene that would pay off a little bit better if there was some sort of resistance to it that maybe Idris Elba broke through, or maybe he doesn't have to give like some crazy speech or anything like that to like motivate them to die, but because that probably wouldn't work. But you can do something. I don't know. It's not prompted by anything. Like they jump right up at it.
Yeah, so they hit the ship. It works.
Yeah, I mean, of course it works. They ran a giant ship into another ship, and then it breaks it.
So I guess fair enough. And the big donut hits the ground. So yeah, like you said, Charlize Theron, she gets to one of the escape pods just in time, and it crashes, and both her and whatever the main character, Shaw, is that her name? The main character.
Yeah. Shaw is the main chick, the main scientist.
Okay, so her and Shaw, are on there. The ship hits the ground, and this starts rolling forward at them.
Yeah, it's like a big donut. So
like a wheel?
So when it hits, it's like a wheel. So when it hits the back onto the planet, it starts rolling like a wheel. And instead of the characters like just moving out of the way from the wheel, they try to like outrun it with it right behind them. It's so it's instead of just like sidestepping this thing, they're just like, they just run straight forward. It's so stupid.
Yeah, it's just one stupid thing
There's like
after another.
there's one direction that you could run that's the worst direction to run, and it's really obvious which direction that is. And you have all these other options around you to run to.
It's like if I was on a train track and I saw a train coming directly at me and I decided to just run
Down the
away.
tracks. You run away from the train, but on the tracks.
Yeah.
Instead of just stepping off to the side and letting it pass. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Unless you can somehow run 100 miles an hour,
Yeah,
you're not going to outrun this thing, all right? So, yeah, Charlize Theron just gets crushed in a very comical kind of way. You see it coming down and she just goes, and then you just got David,
smushed.
and you got David's severed head on the ground. Another alien trope, by the way.
Yeah.
We have to have the android or robot's head broken off at some point and laying on the
And
ground.
you gotta have that like yogurt shooting, that buttermilk shooting out of him.
You gotta have the white milk blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, just sort of.
Which I
Puddling
mean,
around.
I don't know. It's fine. I don't. This is very nitpicky, but I'm just like, man, we're that far in the future. Why would it have little milk? Why it wouldn't have milk blood?
Yeah.
I'm just. This is not nothing to do with. If they want to put milk blood in the movie, I think that's fine. But I'm just talking. I'm just spitballing here that. I feel like if David was a real thing, he wouldn't have any liquids in him.
Yeah, it makes you start thinking about the actual technical structure of this robot in the
It's like,
first place.
wouldn't we be more advanced than like a bunch of tubes with milk in them?
And again, the internet is not something that you just dump something on. It's not a big truck. It's a series of tubes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think it's not like you have to fucking, fill up your phone with gasoline.
I guess
You know what I
it
mean?
was more. I think it was more of a continuity thing where,
Yeah,
since
'cause
Prometheus is a prequel to Alien, and Alien had that.
Oh, you're right. That's actually, yeah, no, you're right, because it's a prequel, so they have to go along with that same thing. That makes sense. Yeah, no.
So that's fine. I just think it's kind of funny that it's just there.
If
as
you're
a
looking
trope.
at sci-fi from a 70s perspective, then it would make sense, Because the way that people thought about the future back then is much different.
oh yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like
I love
I love
70s and 80s movies about the future because they project their shitty technology
Yeah, they
into the time it's supposed
own
to be.
shitty technology just do more things.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like a toaster that's a flashlight.
right. Or somehow in the future, hundreds of years into the future, we're still listening to 80s pop music.
Yeah, everybody still dresses like fucking Madonna.
Yeah, like the style.
Everybody still dresses like Blondie.
The style never changed. The fashion didn't really change much, and neither did much of the technology. It just became a sort of more advanced form of
Well, everybody
what they had
just
already.
everybody just started wearing like more like shoulder pads, and you had like weird metal vests.
Instead of the
you
keyboard,
you just put the antennas in the side of your head. Now you're
instead
in
of
the future.
instead of the keyboards being on the table, now they're on the wall.
Right? Yeah.
It must be the future. Tropes aside, Shaw and David then realize, I guess we're the only ones left. Let's try and figure out what those engineers' plan all was and see why they wanted to kill us.
Yeah.
'Cause
Well, they
That's
do
what
this
we gotta
thing where
do.
it's like everybody's dead. The engineer that woke up is dead. They let out a xenomorph got out, and or not a xenomorph, but the fucking alien that was taken out of Shaw's stomach
Oh yeah, it was kind of a
grows up,
squid-looking
like a
thing.
squid-looking thing. It like grows up and eats the engineer and stuff. And so it's just at the very end, everybody's dead. It's just Shaw and David, and David's like, "Oh, I could fly us back to Earth on that alien ship. Like it still works. We could repair it and blah blah blah. Like somehow we can just repair it and fly back to Earth. And she's like, well, there's nothing there for me. I'm going to just fly to there's nothing there for me on Earth. Like, I'm going to fly to their planet. I'm going to get those answers that my fucking dumbass husband wanted so bad. And it's that logic. That is so stupid. I think I'd want to go home after all of that. Do you know what I mean?
I don't understand the whole, there's nothing for me there on Earth.
It's Earth. It's a whole planet. There's all sorts of things there. Her logic is just, I mean, maybe it's like, oh, she's just so traumatized that she's going to continue the mission or something. And it's just like, I don't know why, because the only impression she got from the engineers is that they want to rip our heads off.
Yeah.
So
they don't seem really cool with meeting us.
They don't seem cool with talking or meeting us or anything like that. So I think that if you flew to the planet where there was a planet of them, I don't think you would, by that logic, you're probably not going to last that long. It sounds like a fruitless planet. It sounds like a dumb idea. David was like, let's go back to Earth. I mean, we find out later that David is evil for some reason that makes no sense. And so maybe he would have just not flown her back to Earth and flown her to the planet anyways. But at the same time, it's like, man, why are you going there?
I kind of get it. A little bit. It just seems like, well, we got to end the movie, so we'll leave the rest of it there for the sequel.
Everything seems like it was just written as it went along, like we said before.
Oh yeah,
it was just written as it was just. They had a couple of ideas. They had an idea for like the whole. It seemed like the whole self-surgery scene was probably one of the most thought out things. They probably thought about that first, or towards the beginning. They thought about that scene and for like whatever body horror stuff they wanted to do, they probably figured all that out first. And then they sort of built a story around that. And everything just kind of seems winged towards the end. It seems there's a point where you can just kind of tell when the script stops.
I think that it is the most apparent with what you said, which is with the very final shot of the film, which is the dead engineer having this sort of proto-xenomorph.
Yeah, like a beta version.
Birth out of him.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be this big reveal. They film it like it is.
Yeah.
It's kind of fading in and out of black and white as this thing starts emerging out of the carcass. And it kind of looks like something out of a Chris Cunningham, like Aphex Twin.
Right, yeah.
Come to Daddy video. It's this thin, skeletal, sort of muscular, but also very grotesque looking thing.
Yeah, contortionist kind of thing.
And yeah, it just opens its jaw up and just starts kind of roaring at you and kind of pops its little mini mouth thing out, and that's the last shot of the film. And man, I remember that's another point. I remember seeing that in theaters, and just that last shot just making me just bust out laughing. I was just like, oh, yeah, of course. All roads lead to the xenomorph.
Right.
That's what these movies do, man. And kind of like what you were saying earlier about fan service and stuff was, man, we made an alien movie, but we didn't really get the xenomorph in it.
Yeah, we didn't get I swear to God, I feel like that was a concept thing.
It is actually. I looked it up.
And they never got to a real, like, they never really figured out a way to sort of work that into the script that they had or the plot that they had. And so they just kind of tacked it on at the end.
I actually looked it up because I was curious about how this all ties in canonically.
Yeah.
You're pretty right on there. This thing is, like I said, too, a kind of proto-xenomorph. It's actually called the Deacon. It kind of looks like the xenomorph, but there's some parts of its form that are a little bit different.
It looks enough like one.
It's close enough.
You can tell right away what it is.
Where if you told the casual alien fan or film goer, like, oh, that's the alien, they'd be like, yeah, that looks like it.
Yeah.
They explore that a little bit more in Alien Covenant as well, because, like I said, all paths lead to the xenomorph somehow with this black goop. They never create anything else with it.
No, that's the thing. It's probably is that we'll get into this more. This will be a two-parter, by the way, because I have a lot to talk about with Alien Covenant. But
yeah, for
as
sure.
a little bit to talk about Covenant just a tiny, tiny bit, it's funny with this black goop stuff because it's one of those like we could just use it for anything type of MacGuffins. It's like it can be whatever we use it whenever we don't know what else to do with the plot.
At least at the end of Prometheus, things were open-ended enough.
Yeah.
At the end of it, where I was on board to at least see,
Like maybe it was a Phantom Menace situation where
to
maybe
see
the
where it
next
goes
one-
and see
yeah.
how things get explained or revealed to us.
Yeah.
Because there was enough interesting things, or at least concepts, in Prometheus that maybe want to see more. As disappointed and frustrated I was with the movie.
I was somewhat optimistic about like a sequel to that. Because I was like, maybe they just kind of got off to a shitty start. Like, maybe this movie will just be a lot better. Like, maybe it's like a Two Towers situation, where, yeah, Fellowship is still a great movie, and it's still awesome, but things don't really start kicking off until Two Towers. And I felt like maybe that was this, too. Like maybe when they get into the second movie, like, things will start to make more sense, or it won't be as stupid. But it got stupider.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. And it also just, of course, that doesn't forgive any of the bullshit that's in the first movie.
No,
either.
absolutely not. But at least it wasn't like leaving the theater with like any hope whatsoever. It's like, yeah, that movie sucked ass in so many different ways, but maybe they might do something better next time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And kind of as a lead in to when we get into part 2, that's what Ridley Scott was actually trying to do with Alien Covenant, in the sense that he saw some of the response to Prometheus and he started to shift gears a little bit and was like, oh,
Whoops.
people kind of, at least some people, noticed that I made some errors there. Well, I'm just going to make my next movie all fan service.
Yeah, it was
Even more.
the great cleanup job.
And hope that is good enough to appease those little piggies
Right.
who are going to come watch my movie. I'm just going to throw some fish at those seals.
And it's really such a shame because so many films that we talk about on this show are more about wasted potential than anything else.
very true.
You know, like almost all the films that we talk about are films that have an interesting premise. They have all the tools in front of them to make something awesome. But they just kind of like, they just fucking start throwing Play-Doh on the walls and they start spitting on everything and like eating their own fucking feet. And I don't understand why this keeps happening. And it's just one of those things where the premise of Prometheus was awesome. It was really cool. It was really ambitious. It really was. It was a very ambitious thing for essentially a franchise that is just a horror monster movie in space, to sort of change gears into this like really like lofty existential sort of plot and premise, to where you can really start doing something interesting with the whole like where do they come from, because that's it was a void that was kind of left in the lore of the xenomorph, is that throughout all the Alien movies, the only thing that we learn about them is sort of kind of how they operate.
They behave kind of like an
ants.
insect or an ant hive, in
Yeah.
the sense that there's one queen basically delegating everything, and there's a caste system of
There's
warriors and workers
what I'm
and
trying
scouts
to say,
and
what I'm trying
different
to say
types
is
of other
like,
guys.
that's the only information that we learn about the xenomorphs in terms of where they come from and what they are and why they're there. It would be cool if maybe, since there's so many movies to this, that we started learning a bit more. We started reaching into the bucket and learning a bit more about where they come from, instead of just kind of doing the same thing over and over and over again, where it's just a ship floating in space that has an alien on it.
Absolutely. And I'm on board with that whole idea.
That's what I'm saying, is I am on board with that idea. I think it would be cool to like reach and figure that out.
With Prometheus, you basically get the sense that, okay, well, Jesus was an alien,
Absolutely.
and the xenomorph was created by a robot.
Yeah, a xenomorph bursted out of fucking Mary's stomach, screaming and throwing her intestines everywhere.
And The success of answering those questions really depends on what the results are. You know, if that's the big reveal, like, oh, this stuff was actually just created by whatever, and it's
In order for that ending scene with the reveal of the sort of pseudo xenomorph to be effective, you have to go through Prometheus without thinking that it has anything to do with the Alien franchise, that it's something completely different, which is what Ridley Scott and the marketing team of this movie tried to do. They tried to, that was their strategy, was they were sort of neither confirm nor deny throughout the whole marketing of the film and through interviews and stuff that they would not confirm that it was a prequel to Alien, even though that was the overall like accepted rumor that was going around about it. That was the overall accepted narrative of the film and during the marketing. And so he like blew it essentially. Their marketing, they dropped the ball and they fucking blew it. And they didn't market the movie correctly to hide that fact. And it got out.
I think they were trying to be clever because they were trying to hide that this thing was supposed to be in canon with the rest of the Alien series and lore.
Right.
And at the same time, they're like, oh, yeah, but this movie also costs like 150.
We got to get that name recognition. We got to get that. We got people got to know that it's an Alien movie, or else nobody's gonna go see it.
And if this bombs, that means we ain't making that sequel.
Yeah.
So we got to make people know. We got to tell people it is, but also not really.
Yeah.
Connected to the Alien thing that most people know about. I think most people who went and saw it, including myself and my friends, knew deep down, like, look, it's aliens. Look at it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you once you hear like, oh, H.R. Geiger is working on it. All right, yeah.
Let's use all the visual design and iconography of all that, but let's just say we're not doing that. And it's just kind of funny because once we get to the sequel, they just decide, fuck it, it's Alien Covenant, all right?
Yeah,
it's not Prometheus 2.
When we get to the sequel, yeah, it's not like another thing. Or yeah, we got to go right on the nose with it. And then during the trailer, we have to show the final scene thing with the alien on the ship. You know, like when they're fighting.
Oh yeah.
It's like that's the one thing I remember from the trailer from Covenant is like the ship that's taking off and the alien is on top of it. And I love it when trailers use their like money shot scenes in their trailers.
Yeah,
you know, like when they use like their most like the crescendo, like their climax, they use that in their trailer.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow.
It gives you the impression that there's going to be more of that,
right,
in the final product, and then you go and see the movie, and you're like, oh wait, it was just those little shots.
Yeah. It was just that. It was just exactly. It was just the trailer, but extended. Yeah. I'm going to end it on this note too, but like as a little preview, David states in Covenant that like, you know, I've created the perfect organism. Perfect in every way. It's beautiful. And it's just this unintelligent, dumb fucking animal that attacks everything without any sort of logical reasoning and without its own, like what you said, like without its own safety in mind, without anything. And I'm just... That statement
from the
that
point
line,
of birth too.
Like yeah, like as soon as it's alive, it just starts going absolutely apeshit, and I'm like, what do you mean by perfect organism? Like what is the benefit of having this creature?
It's ugly. It can't talk.
It's not benevolent. It doesn't offer any sort of advancement in anything. You would think an android who's like scientifically based would be looking for like I don't know, like the what's the sort of tropey thing, like the androids are always looking for like knowledge. Mm-hmm. Like they're always trying, like aliens too, like more like traditional Martians are like always like trying to like, you know, just gain information. Like that's what they eat. Like that's their food is like knowledge. Mm-hmm. And Michael Fassbender and David, he exhibits kind of the same sort of thing where he's kind of on this quest for constantly learning and learning new things and gaining knowledge and trying to create stuff because, you know, he wants to be a creator. And he just talks about, I guess he went through several different generations of these creatures and was like, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. Until he got to the xenomorph where he was like, all right, it's perfect. It's just like, you know?
Like I said,
it's
like,
beautiful.
like I said, like, this thing's fucking ugly. It has acid blood.
Yeah. Not convenient.
So you can't really operate on this thing if it gets injured.
Alien inconvenient.
It drools way too much.
Yeah. The drool isn't the drool itself acid? Too? I'm trying to remember that from the earlier
I'm
films.
not sure. I just know that they're always dripping wet.
I don't know. I just remember from the earlier films. I know the blood was acid, but I couldn't remember if the drool was acid. No, the drool wasn't acid. It was just gross.
It was always just like this mucusy substance
Yeah.
that's just constantly pouring off them.
Yeah, because I don't know. Like, we'll get into it in the part 2.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna start falling down this whole rabbit hole. The part 2 will be pretty much specifically about David, because nothing really happens in Alien Covenant. It's just a hack and slash monster movie, which is fine. It's just fucking dumb. It's just a real dumb version of one, and it's another instance of wasted potential because the setting and everything that they're in is awesome, and they don't do anything with it.
Yeah, so we'll get to that next time. I think we've said all there is to say about Prometheus.
Oh yeah. It's a comedy of errors.
But I will give it this just as a final thought. Compared to Tenet and 1917
Would rather watch Prometheus.
and Dunkirk,
Would rather watch Prometheus.
I'm just going to say Prometheus was a funner film to revisit as much as I love tearing it apart.
Yeah. Oh no, it's dumb, but at least it has its entertaining moments, and it has its very interesting, like good, like Cronenberg-y kind of body horror scenes that I love and I think are awesome.
But the reason why we wanted to make this episode was because this film had so much more potential to be something truly great. It could have been one of the best sci-fi films of the decade.
It could have been right up there with some of the greats, and because like the top sci-fi movies that we usually say, like, I don't know, like 2001 or whatever like that, they almost always have to do with some sort of like existential humanism.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're always at the root cause of like, oh, this is, you know, unraveling the mysteries of humanity and where we come from and what it all means and how the universe works. And that's why they're always so great, because they're always these grandiose ideas. And this movie just tries to start with that, but doesn't know what to do with it afterwards.
Yeah, pretty much. It's trying to be all philosophical, but it failed philosophy.
Oh, it just
101.
stops trying to do that.
Yeah.
Immediately. It just stops trying. It starts with that and then just like, yeah.
Why are things like stuff? Why is stuff?
Why is stuff am I? Why am I stuff?
Why is Prometheus?
All right, that seems like a good as place as any to end it. We'll go ahead and continue this on part 2, and until then, check us out at YouTube, right?
Oh yeah, YouTube. Just search Hacksaw Podcast. You'll see us right there. We upload all the episodes also on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. If you want to see us on any other platforms, we'll put them up there too.
Yeah,
and
send us an email.
Yeah.
hacksawpodcast@gmail.com.
If you just want to send
this
us
episode
suggestions
to your grandma, send this episode to your auntie, your peepaw, your meemaw, and let them know. Let them know about what they said about Prometheus was wrong. Let them know. Okay. All right, guys. Well, signing off.
See you next time.